In Chapter 14 of Attempt 13 of my FE6 Meh Units Only Ironman, we enter my nightmares made manifest, the Nevada Desert, a wasteland home to a secluded village known as Arcadia, where dragons and humans coexist, which is now being invaded by Burns' forces to deny us access to yet another legendary weapon. This map is a notoriously difficult desert map with Fog of War, and a 25 turn timer to get access to the bonus Gaiden chapter. The desert in FE6 has a particularly harsh rule in that any non-flyer and magical units have their movement speed cut by 4 tiles, with some units such as generals and cavalry facing steeper penalties. This is particularly bothersome for my army, as most of my units can only move 2 tiles each round. Because of these stiff penalties, I am forced to also bench Boars, as he can only move 1 square at a time, and we really can't afford having him along with Wendy moving at a snail's pace. This chapter also gives us our last must-deploy unit in the form of Sophia the Shaman. And what a unit she is! Wow! Look at those stats! Are you guys impressed? I certainly am. Luckily for us, I did save several stat boosters for her ahead of time, but I still very much have to watch her like a hawk, as a stiff breeze could send her 6 feet under. We also get Cecilia as a temporary unit we can use via my rule set, but she will mostly be using stabs, and occasionally hitting with her weapon when necessary. The desert, like many other such maps, also contain an assortment of highly valuable treasures, the most notable being the Silver Card and the Warp Staff, located in the northwest corner of the map and the southeast corner, respectively. These and several other treasures can be dug up by other units based on the character's luck stat, but thieves are always guaranteed to find them, so I deploy both Chad and Astor to do just that. Most of my forces then take the time to wrap around the northern edge of the map to get to the objective, while a smaller contingent goes with Astor as an escort. But we are immediately bottlenecked by 2 aggressive Wyvern Lords, while Gonzalez makes several shaky hand axe hits to clear out the northern mage forces. These Wyverns show up a bit quicker than expected and immediately cause a heart attack, as Lot has to face a very decent shot of being crit each combat he faces them, while Dorothy immediately loses 2/3 of her health to the other one. Certainly rough, but I can just physic her with Ellen after she kills the Wyvern. And she misses. Oh goody! Well, I am still going to heal her, but we have a few problems. First, being that Astor will straight up die to the Wyvern Lord next turn, even at full health. But I luckily have a Lance Reaver he can take from Fur and survive. Lot is constantly facing low chances of just dying each round, but I've got nothing else to work with, so good luck, Lot! But the final problem shakes me to my core. Sophia is in range of both Wyvern Lords, and was put to sleep so she cannot move out of range. Oh no. And the only 2 people that can rescue her out of danger is Windy and Roy. Oh no. The worst part is that these 2 will surely get doubled with rescue stat reductions, but I have no choice and have to pray that Wyrm Slayer Roy strikes fear into the hearts of these Wyvern Lords. With such a target-rich environment, the Wyverns decide not to risk their lives on Roy, and go for Astor and Lot instead, which allows us to not die stupidly this round, even if I totally deserve it. Don't worry, I'm sure this chapter will take something else from me as compensation. We are then able to clear out the Wyvern Lords, but their slightly weaker friends are still needing to be cleared out. And did I mention that there is a large force of Brigands and Berserkers spawning soon? Because that's a thing, and we need to clear both groups of Wyverns or risk our thieves both dying in this godforsaken desert. We are able to do just that, as Chad is being chased down by a Berserker from the south, allowing him to collect the Silver Card, which reduces purchase costs by half as long as it is in the unit's inventory. Fur is also left to take on the remaining Brigands and Berserker to the south, and even with her cap speed and weapon triangle, there is still a decent shot she can just die to the Berserker, which shows in my ever-increasing panic.
There's so many bad things. Please, Fur, don't die. God, please, no. Just...
And some may argue that I should just use Dorothy to help Fur out here, but with a mage running around and very limited healing supplies between the three, we have no choice but to trust Fur to dodge tank for a bit longer until Dorothy is available. While all this is going on, I am racing my other units around the bend of the cliff face to the north and desperately trying to get a foothold, as even more shirtless men will be spawning from the north and east on turn 14. And I think the game wanted to torch me as much as possible, as I continuously missed 80+% hits on targets, and then proceed to hit several incredibly shaky hits to barely clear out threats to Sophia's life. Also, Dorothy has been working overtime getting maximum use out of her killer bow, since that initial miss on the Wyvern Lord. I am entirely certain the Southern group were destined to fall otherwise. Shoulder pats of approval will not stop the reinforcements though, as I now have Chad stuck between the Berserker on his left and the incoming forces on his right. He should have a good dodge rate, and even if one of the brigands hits him, he should be okay.
No. Wait. Wait.
With Chad poisoned, there is a 2 in 3 chance he will just die, with no way for me to react. And once enemy phase ends, we lose the gamble, and lose our second unit of the Ironman. The truly tragic loss is that I didn't send the Speedwing to the convoy when I got the talisman earlier, so we lose out on one of the better stat boosters in the game, and one dodgy boy. Go tell OJ how you died there, Chad. I am sure he will get a kick out of it. With Chad gone, we really need to get a move on towards the boss, and it is even more imperative that I get Wendy out of the desert, as more axe units come pouring in like the Walking Dead. I did think ahead and gave Wendy an axe reaver, but sustained combat with these forces is just not feasible anymore. Gonzalez takes this opportunity to carry the northern group on his back by making great use of the Sword Reaver, tearing down all the remaining mercenaries and the hero. Having to rely on 50-50s is certainly an interesting strategy, but I really can't set up anything better, and we are immediately rewarded for our efforts with a guiding ring to promote our speed-screwed Lelina. During all of this, our southern group finally clears the western brigands and is once again held up from retrieving the warp staff as multiple shirtless men bar our way east. We do have to break through at some point, but I am intentionally waiting until we clear the boss, as I will need to put Astor right next to a Manakete to retrieve the elusive item. The boss himself is quite difficult for most of my army, but Ellen comes in clutch to deal with him over a couple more turns. With the boss dead, I have to risk Astor on some brigands to get in range of the warp staff next turn. He thankfully dodges, and Fur clears the way to retrieve the staff. We sell what we can for a pure water, and we close the chapter, just as the brigands are about to collapse on our army. In Chapter 14X of Attempt 13 of my FE6 Meh Units Only Ironman, we enter an underground oasis containing Archsage Aphos' legendary weapon, Forblaze. Sophia tells us that Aphos himself returned the tome here, but based on the story from FE7, it is more likely Bramamond took on the guise of Aphos and brought back the weapon to be sealed. Little extra lore bit, or at least a lore theory to release some of the tension from the last chapter. The good news is that this map is substantially easier compared to Chapter 14, and that there is no time limit or reinforcements to worry about. Just some bolting siege tomes and inconvenient waterways being flooded with pirates. The main mechanic of the map is that platforms will submerge every few turns to cause any movement to be slowed to a crawl, and can trap units entirely if they have no adjacent platforms to cross. It is very reminiscent of FE7's Night of Farewells chapter, but since there are no reinforcements to worry about, there is way less pressure on the player to move aggressively. Instead, it is much better to stall the initial push with 3 tankier units and cherry-pick enemies for easy experience grinding. This is particularly effective for Sophia, Geese, and Lelina, as they really need some levels to round out their stats. I also take the time to give Sophia the talisman from last chapter, and I go back and forth between giving the boots to either Laloum or Boars. I ultimately decide on Boars, as he may be needed to quickly move around choke points later on. That, and I'm showing favoritism after I nearly died without Boars last chapter. Once the initial forces are removed, I move up Ellen to tank all the bolting tomes from the two sages, but not before a cheeky druid decides to block the way back on the turn the platform submerged. We are able to just clear him out and recover immediately, but honestly, brilliant movement there, AI, bravo. During this, Wendy gets her 20th level, and I'm gonna be honest, she has very comparable stats to Boars once she promotes. Obviously less defense, but she will turn out alright in the grand scheme of things. Afterwards, we start moving along the outer edge of the map in a giant circle, trying to get whatever levels we can on Sophia, and burning through her entire Flux Tome. I did have a backup tome, but due to what I will call post-traumatic Nabata disorder, I completely forget to add it into her inventory, and I am forced to use the Nosferatu tome instead. We do get some levels on previously mentioned units, but leveling speed is a very foreign concept to Lilina and Geese. God, I'm missing that speed wing already. But hey, look! Sophia with a barrier staff buff can at least kill off the weaker sage. Now that's character development. With the sage surrounded, we have Boars and Lilina bond over their mutual disdain of Quaker Oats oatmeal, and we claim the Forblaze tome, feeling slightly humbled from our day's experience.